What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Next Deal podcast. I'm your host, Justin Dossie, and we are joined always by our wonderful co-host, Vince.
Yo.
How's it going? Good. Awesome. Well,
Back.
today,
Off.
what'd you say?
Said glad to be back. We got a week off.
We did, even though people didn't miss anything because we still had episodes going out, but you and I had a week off, so that's nice. Well, today we have a special guest, Alex Bradley, joining us. And one thing about Alex that's kind of cool is he's been investing in real estate since 2019. He's done over 100 deals, but most of those have been in the last 2.5 years. And he's got a little bit of a different take on how this business operates for him that I'm interested to get into. So, Alex, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on. And
thanks, guys. Excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Could you tell us just a little bit about kind of how you got started in real estate investing? I know we talked a little bit about it at the beginning before we recorded, but tell us a little bit about just kind of how you got started in this.
For sure. Honestly, out of desperation, I was just struggling to get by. I had graduated college in 2017, and my wife and I actually, our daughter was born like 3 weeks before starting our senior year in college. So that changed like the plans coming out of college. Instead of being, dual income, no kids, able to live pretty cheaply, save up, and, just climb the corporate ladder, buy a house, like live the American dream type of thing. That was the plan. Things changed. It didn't make sense for us to have a babysitter full time. So my wife took the first couple of years and stayed home with our daughter. And then in, 2018, started staying home with our son once we had 2 kids. So I was in a position where graduating college, I was supporting a family of 3 in San Diego, California, which is known as like the least affordable place in America to live. And then shortly after, I was supporting a family of 4 here in San Diego. And so, I had a decent job, but it wasn't cutting it. So I was working full time, W-2, like sales position. And then I was working at a restaurant, like 25 to 30 hours a week. And this is like just to get by. And to be honest with you, I was always an entrepreneur. I always knew I wanted to own my own business. I had started businesses in college. We used to sling mattresses at the swap meet. We did like Amazon FBA, and we tried drop shipping. We tried affiliate marketing and creating blogs and stuff like this. But none of that stuff stuck. And it was 2018. Like I said, I was working multiple jobs and just trying to get by. And that's when I found wholesaling. And it took years to figure it out, but it was the one side hustle that stuck and was able to eventually like free me from working in the corporate world.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, and you're still in San Diego, aren't you?
Still in San Diego.
Yep. That's so quick, just side story on that. And then we'll get back to what we're talking about. But my brother lives in San Diego. And
oh, nice.
Yeah, he was just in Japan and was telling me about how cheap everything was there. And they went out to dinner and got drinks and sushi and all that kind of stuff for 4 people. And it was like $30. He's like, I don't think I can get one drink for $30.
Yeah, exactly.
When he goes out to dinner.
I take my kids out and we get gyoza and edamame, and it's like $80.
Dude,
it's wild.
Wild. Yeah. Sorry. Quick. I had to tell that
like,
story.
It seems like your track to real estate is like all the other investors out there, Amazon, affiliate marketing, all the side hustles that you try to get into and don't work.
All. And actually,
it's pretty funny. I did that.
I heard about wholesaling end of summer in 2018, and then my son was born in December 2018. And so I had been planning to use my paternity leave. I was going to have 90 days to get my start. And I was like, I literally had no time leading up to that. Like I said, I had a full-time job. I was working at a restaurant. I actually had a marketing internship. So I would start work at 6 a.m. I was working at a Home Depot, as a vendor. I'd get there at 6 a.m. I'd come home at 2:30. When I got off, I'd change into my restaurant clothes, and then I'd go to the restaurant. I'd be home at 11 p.m. And the days I didn't work at the restaurant, I had a marketing internship, literally not even just Monday through Friday, but 7 days a week. I was working, and Monday through Friday, I was working at least 2 jobs a day. So I was so busy, I didn't have time to launch anything. And so I had made this plan to use my paternity leave as my moment. I have 90 days to make something happen. And ironically, I had spent 6 months listening to podcasts and wholesaling. Like mentally, I'd gotten to a point where it sounded too good to be true. I didn't think I was actually going to be able to like launch a wholesaling company in 90 days. And so I had actually done a training to do a 1099 sales position selling advertisement for a magazine. And I started my paternity leave doing that. And it lasted a week. I like spent a few days cold calling, and then I had a couple of appointments. And I remember this one specific appointment. This guy, he was like the manager at a restaurant downtown. He asked me, like, how do I track my KPIs for these ads? Like, how do I see, if it's working or not? And he's telling me how he's using Facebook advertising. And obviously, he can see, how many views it's getting, how many clicks it's getting, how many conversions it's getting. And I was just like, man, you're right. Like this makes no sense. Why would you buy this ad for this magazine? And so I realized like I couldn't do that. Like I didn't even believe in the product I was selling. And so that's when I made the decision like, all right, well, I may as well try wholesaling. And so that was like the launch of it. My wife and I spent the next like couple of weeks cold calling pre-foreclosure lists, door knocking. My son was 3 weeks old and we would go door knock pre-foreclosures in San Diego, and we got our first deal from doing that, and we got really lucky. We closed our first deal like 3 weeks, like within the first 3 weeks of like starting to try wholesaling.
In one of the most competitive markets too.
Yeah, and when I say luck, like we got so lucky,
Yeah.
with how that happened, and it took months to get my second deal. That first like year, I was part time, just like wholesaling on the side. I did 4 deals that entire year, so it was very like up and down for the first couple of years.
Yeah.
How did you know about wholesaling in the first?
It's kind of there was like bits and pieces that I learned in college. My wife and I went to this local seminar that was kind of wholesaling. It was funny. It was like supposedly hosted by Damon John from Shark Tank, but he wasn't there. It was just his face was on it. So we went to this seminar and they were describing wholesaling. This was probably 2015 or 2016, but their business model that they were teaching on was getting REOs from banks. So they're like, go call local asset managers at banks, get their list of REOs, and like basically wholesale those. So that was when I very first heard about it, and we didn't take action on that. And then fast forward to like summer 2018, I was reading this blog called Side Hustle Nation, and there was like a post on there about wholesaling. And that was the traditional, like, get a property under contract from a seller, mark it up, assign it, and make that spread in the middle. And so that's when I like heard about it and then like really dove deep and started like listening to all the podcasts, watching the YouTube videos and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Now you've got we were talking about this a little bit beforehand. You don't do any marketing, right? So how has it evolved over the years for you, right? You started with some door knocking, kind of, that was how you got your first deal, right? So from there to now where you're 100 plus deals, right? Like how has that evolved? What have you tried and what's worked for you that you've been able to consistently replicate going forward and that you're currently doing now?
So the first year, I started off like door knocking, cold calling, and then I met a guy in San Diego who taught me how to do Facebook ads. And so, like, pretty quickly, I got into doing that. And then I ran with Facebook ads for the rest of 2019 and then pretty much all of 2020. And at this time, it was still a side hustle. I still had a full time job, I was still working at a restaurant. And so I was just running Facebook ads, leads were coming in, and I'd closed like 4 a year basically. And then at the end of 2020, I went full time. And right at that time, like Facebook ads, just they made some changes and they stopped working for me. And so I pivoted and went to doing cold calling. And that was a nightmare for me personally. Like I think I started out, I like tried hiring an agency, like a cold caller through an agency, and then that didn't really work out. So I tried hiring like my own cold caller and training them, and that wasn't really working out. And so then I was like, all right, I got to cold call myself. And that was just like a nightmare. I remember I would sit in front of my computer and I'd make a couple calls and someone would cuss me out. And then I'd just get so in my head and I would just like, then just stare at my computer and just be like frozen and like not able to make more calls.
Mm-hmm.
And so that first year, like full time, it was supposed to be my year. It's like, all right, I'm all in, I'm committed. Like I'm gonna, make $1 million wholesaling this year, right? That was the mindset going into it. I did one deal that first year. It was worse than my previous 2 years as a
Mm-hmm.
side hustle. And so that 2021 was rough. I, basically blew through all of my savings. Like I say, I went broke and I just got burnt out of wholesaling from trying to cold call basically. And then at the end of 2021, I had an opportunity to start working for another wholesaling company that was here in Southern California, but not doing acquisitions anymore. I went and started and I ran Dispo for them. And so I spent a year, a little over a year, just running Dispo exclusively for this other wholesaling company. It was a small company. It was a husband and wife. The husband did acquisitions, the wife did transaction coordinating, and then I did Dispo. And I realized like, oh, like this is way more my lane. This fits my personality. I realized like I didn't hate wholesaling. I hated talking to sellers. I didn't enjoy the drama that just came with like trying to help sellers through their problems and like spending months following up with the same person. Like I just realized like I hated that part of the business. But the dispo side, like there's no emotion involved. It's just numbers, like does this deal make sense for you or not? And I loved having those conversations with people. And we killed it that first year. We did 40 deals. I dispoed 40 deals for them in that first year.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I said, I was with them for about a year and a half, and then I transitioned out of that and relaunched my own company, specifically still in Dispo, but now instead of being exclusive for one company, now I do Dispo for a lot of other wholesalers, agents, and flippers.
Interesting. So with the way you're doing that now, how does that work currently, right? Like they've got the deals and then you're helping sell them, I'm assuming. But
Yep.
You're doing that nationally, I'm guessing?
Doing it nationally. I'm not every single state, but all across the country in different states.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
I'm assuming over time you've probably just built up like connections with buyers, or are you selling these slightly differently than that?
I've definitely built up like relationships with buyers all over the place. I've done a lot in Texas. I've done a lot in Florida. I've done a handful in New Mexico, Louisiana. But like I'm also meeting new buyers every day. Like sometimes, like I got one in West Virginia earlier this year. It's a package of 7 single family homes. Never done anything in West Virginia, and I was able to send this deal out and find a buyer for it. So,
Hmm.
it's a little bit of both, like relationships that I built over the last few years of doing Dispo, and then also, just being able to find new buyers for deals that are coming up.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Dude, a few weeks ago, Justin and I talked to a guy named Ken who has this new app called Flipbid. You need to go check it out.
Okay. It's for Dispo?
Yeah, well, it's basically like Facebook and WhatsApp in one kind of app for just real estate investors. What I really like about it is you get verified as like a legit investor. So you can do business with other verified legit investors. Jess, I don't know if you went through that process yet with the app. I did. It's
No, not yet. I
Yeah,
haven't.
it's pretty detailed. So you know that when someone is verified, you're connecting with someone who is legit. But you can connect with anyone throughout the whole entire nation, Alex, and it's pretty cool. Like I've started toying around with it more and more and more. It's newer. They've already went through beta, so it's got some really good. Uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's been kind of tested, right?
Hmm.
So definitely look into it because I think that would definitely be beneficial for you for sure. And it's a sweet app, and we've got that episode on YouTube and the podcast. You can listen to it as well.
Yeah, I'll check that out for sure.
Yeah,
Right now, like I'm primarily using InvestorLift. That's
yeah,
how I'm able to, Dispo, obviously like nationwide. They've got, millions of buyers nationwide, like built in. I think anyone that can afford InvestorLift, like if you've got a deal and you put it on there, you can sell it quickly if it's a good deal, no matter where it's at. Even, obviously metro areas are better, but even if it's like middle and nowhere, like if it's a deal, like somebody will buy it if you put it on there. So that's been my primary way to be able to market deals.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, like I said, I spend $0 on acquisitions. All my deals come from other investors. I do acquisitions. Like I've been lucky enough to, like, when I first started, like when I first relaunched my business, I was lucky enough to where I had built a good enough reputation for myself as a dispo guy that when I told everybody that I went on my own, like I just had people calling me, every day, like, hey, I've got this deal. Can you help me sell it?
Yeah.
And so that was really nice. Just inbound, like I just focus on, finding the buyer for it. So that was a huge blessing.
Mm.
These days I still have a lot of that, but I'm growing and I'm trying to scale and do more deals. And so I do a little bit of acquisitions and like cold outreach as well. Like I'm, staying in the Facebook groups for wholesaling. I'm getting myself added to people's buyers lists and I'm evaluating deals every day. And the stuff that looks good, I'll cold call that wholesaler and kind of give him my pitch on, letting me market their deal and bring them a buyer for it. And so, and I think I have a kind of unique pitch for that. I've found that I've been able to convert a lot of wholesalers that have the mindset, like they'll literally put in their post like no JV, I only direct buyers, like will not work with anyone else. And then I'll spend 5 minutes on the phone with them. They're like, okay, sure, like I trust you, like we can work together on it.
Hmm.
So that's been cool.
Yeah. Yeah. The people that go on Facebook and just take the picture and say it's theirs.
Yeah.
Dude, that drives me nuts. I think a lot of people try and do like dispo, but you're
Yeah.
just going to burn bridges and create a bad reputation for yourself if you're just, stealing people's deals and putting them out there like that just makes everybody mad. So I always make sure to get permission to market their deals. And another thing that I do differently is I will always market the property at the same price that they're marketing at. Like my goal is to add my fee on top, but I don't want to confuse the marketplace. I don't, there's always going to be a crossover between my buyer's list and their buyer's list.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if they're asking $250,000 for a house, I'm going to send it to my buyer's list at 250,000. That way, if there's that crossover and somebody calls me and they say, hey, I already see this deal, I'm just gonna be like, yeah, Justin sent me this deal. I'm helping him with dispo on it. And buyers are cool with that. They don't mind, they get annoyed when they see the same deal from two different people at two different prices. But if they see you
Yep.
guys as like a
Like, why is
joint
this one 20
team
grand higher?
working
I'm
on
not
this
doing this
deal,
one.
yeah, exactly. So like, I'll say like I'm a daisy chainer, but I do it in a way that isn't creating conflict and is making everybody like, all right, we're here to try and move this deal and create a win-win for everybody. And
Mm.
then, the way that I add my fee on top is like, Justin, if you send me a deal and I'm wholesaling it for you, like we're going to be communicating, you let me know where your offers are coming in at. If you've got offers right at 250, I'm going to tell my buyer, hey, they've got offers on the table. In order for us to win this, we got to be at like 265. That way I can net you an extra 5K and make my 10K on top. And so the buyer loves it because I'm kind of like the inside scoop. I'm able to talk directly to you, find out exactly where the offers are
Mm.
coming in at. He doesn't feel like he has to really bid because he's just getting the winning number from me.
Hmm.
And you're able to, make a little bit more money on the deal as well. And that's how I'm able to like create this win-win situation doing deals this way.
Hmm. Very interesting. How are Huh. I have so many questions about this because this is definitely a different way of doing JV type deals because that's essentially what you're doing. You're
Yeah,
you're
that's all I
selling
do.
you're
Yeah.
selling it for them, right?
Yep.
So, how are people finding you or finding out about you to bring deals to you in the first place? Like how have you? I guess maybe a better question is how have you built that reputation that you'll make sure that deals are moved and that they're moved properly, so that you have people coming back to you as well.
Not every deal sells. I don't get people coming back to me because I sell every single deal of theirs. I get people coming back to me because I'm so good at communicating with them throughout the whole process.
Mm.
If I'm marketing your deal, I'm going to let you know when I send it out, and I'm going to let you know exactly what feedback and offers we're getting the whole way through. Like I'll update you daily or every other day or just as the offers come in at, so you
Mm.
know exactly what I'm getting. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like my like number one rule is to give you feedback before you ask for it, especially if it's bad news. I think a lot of people make the mistake, like if they're not, able to sell that deal, they kind of just like hide and they, don't respond to the person that sent them the deal. And it's like, that it's part of the business, that you send a deal out. Not everyone is going to sell, but if you are the first one to say, hey, this is where the offers are coming in at, this is what buyers are saying, if you're getting the same feedback, let's work together to try to get a price reduction. I vetted these buyers, and if you can get the price down to this much, like this guy's ready to go. And so I think people appreciate that. It's like, one, they know I'm working on the deal. I didn't just, send it out and, hope for the best. Like we're working on it. I've got a VA that's cold calling on it as well. And I'm letting them know like exactly what the feedback is.
Cool.
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah. I want to rewind just a little bit to where, you had those different years where you're like, I got 4 deals, I got 1 deal, I got 2. It wasn't very consistent. Like, how did you, like, in between your ears, like, how did you get in the mindset of saying, you know what, I got to just keep going? Because a lot of people would have just quit, right? They would have never have gone back. They're like, can't do this. It doesn't work. But you stayed with it. You stayed persistent. And now in the last 2.5 years, you've done 100+ deals. So like, kind of, explain that to us a little bit.
You were kind of cutting out there, but I think you're asking basically like, even through all the ups and downs, like what just kept me going.
Right.
It was tough. Like I completely failed in 2021 and had to even go back to working at a restaurant just to get by. I think in December I had to like borrow money from my mom even to like pay rent. Like I was able to pay her back early 2022, but um, I didn't really see any other options. Like there was nothing else out there that I was like, all right, instead of wholesaling, I can do this. Like what
Mm-hmm.
I was doing was not an option. Like I could not maintain and support my family off of my W-2 income, even plus working at a restaurant. I was just scraping by, everything is getting more expensive. We're putting stuff on credit cards. So when I say like it was out of desperation, like it was really out of desperation. I didn't see any other businesses that made sense, like wholesaling is one of those things where like, it's harder now, but back then you could do it with very little overhead.
Yeah.
And so when I failed, my wife had become a licensed agent the year before, and she was doing really good. She was on a team, she was getting inbound leads from Zillow, and she was crushing it. And so I decided when I like had to hang up the wholesaling hat for a little bit, I was like, all right, I'll get my license, I'll be a retail agent for a while, I'll build back like my savings, and then I'll relaunch my wholesaling company. And that was kind of the extent of my plan. I didn't have a plan on how I was going to do that. I was just like, this is what I'm going to do. So I started taking my courses. I was working at a restaurant again in the meantime. And then it was like I had finished my course and I had scheduled my exam for my license, but they were backed up like months. And so I was just like waiting to, take my exam. And in between that waiting period is when I had that opportunity to go do dispo for that other company.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, I talk about this on the podcast all the time. Like, right, our wives are, half the way to get you there, like making
Right.
sure that they're part of the conversation. Like, hey, babe, you got this. So, like, what was the conversation like during those tough parts, with your wife?
It was tough. I mean, my wife is very supportive, but there gets to a point where it's like, hey, the last deal you sold was in February, it's July, you're still spending money, like it gets to a point where it's like, what's the plan? There was definitely a lot of conversations about like, what are we going to do,
Yeah.
And so, luckily, like I had a plan and, the plan was to get licensed and that made sense. Like I knew that I could make money doing that. She was, like I said, she was crushing it and it would have been pretty smooth for me to kind of pick up where she was at as well. She was on a really, really good team. She still is. And so it was actually tougher when I first started, when I kind of pivoted and I was like, all right, I have this opportunity to do dispo and I'm not going to chase like the retail license option anymore. Like I still got licensed, but I wasn't going to put my focus on getting listings and helping retail buyers. There was a couple of months when I first started that position where I hadn't made any money yet. I like had a couple deals and then they fell through. There was like a title issue and then a buyer backed out. And so there was a couple months where it's like, oh, like, are you sure this is what you should be focusing your time on? Because there was these two opportunities that both like looked really, really promising. And I had to make a decision. Do I want to do this dispo thing or do I want to be a retail agent? And I chose to go dispo. And there was definitely some questioning there. And then again, fast forward a year later, when I relaunched my own wholesaling company, I launched in April and I closed some deals in May, but it like took a while to get the ball rolling. And it was maybe, 4 to 6 weeks before like I really like had everything lined up and like my system was rolling the way that it should. And so there was some doubt there too, where she kept saying, like, what are we going to do? Like, what's the backup plan? And at that time, I was like, I don't have a backup. Like, this is it. I'm going to make this work. And I
All
kind of just
in.
had to like push through that and prove it to her. So
Yeah.
those were some tough moments for sure.
Yeah.
That's
Couldn't agree more. I mean, go ahead.
no, you go.
I was just going to say, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, for me, at least it's pretty similar where it's like, there's not another option at the moment, like this is all in, got to make this work kind of thing. There's ups and downs and there's stuff I got to learn along the way, but going to figure it out one way or the other. And I think that's what makes people successful versus people that aren't, is being able to push through those times.
Yeah. And I mean, something I wish I would have figured out a lot sooner is like we were talking about even before we started, there's so many ways to make money in this business. Like there's even so many niches within wholesaling real estate. And wholesaling as an industry has evolved. Like it used to be, like I said, you could operate a company with pretty low overhead, pull a small list, do some cold calling, do some direct mail, and you could run a business and do pretty good because there wasn't as much competition. You do your acquisitions, you do your dispositions, you do your TC, and like it wasn't that hard to run a wholesaling operation as a solo operator. I think
Mm-hmm.
today the industry has advanced so much and there's so much competition. Like you really do have to separate it. Like bigger wholesaling companies, they have an entire acquisitions department. They have an entire dispositions department. Even under acquisitions, there could be a direct to seller part of that department, a JV part of that department. Like it's very split up and it's more complex these days. And so I think that in a way it's made the barrier to entry harder if you want to start your own thing, but at the same time it's split it up to where you can pick one of those things and focus on that and even just build a business just around acquisitions, just around being a TC, just around doing disposition. So there's so many ways to make money here. I wish I would have realized that sooner. I wish I would have figured out what made sense for me a lot sooner and pivoted sooner, because I tell people all the time, I've been wholesaling for 5 years, but it took me 3 years to actually make money wholesaling. Year
Mm-hmm.
four was the first year I made six figures in real estate, but it was working for another company. Year five was the first year I broke six figures, like working for myself as an like self-employed entrepreneur in real estate. It took me 5 years to do that. And, I know that there's either wholesalers out there that are brand new and they're trying to figure out where they fit in as a wholesaler. And there's other wholesalers that have been in it for a year or maybe longer that are probably beating their head against the wall because they're stuck, like I was, trying to do acquisitions, trying to do cold calling, and it just doesn't fit. Like it takes a very special person to do acquisitions. Like that is a very hard job. And if you don't have the right personality for that, like you're going to struggle and you're going to be where I was, where you get burnt out and you go broke because you're trying to force that and you're
Mm-hmm.
beating your head against the wall doing it. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I harp on a lot these days. It's like there's other ways to do it, and anyone can do what I do right now with $0 overhead, zero in acquisitions. You don't need investor lift to do dispo. Um, I just had a conversation with a friend yesterday who is new into wholesaling. He's doing acquisitions for a big wholesaling company here in San Diego, and he's struggling a bit. It's really hard to get the ball rolling. And I was like, dude, like you don't have to do the business this way. If you wanted to do similar to what I can do, I'll give you an example of like how someone can start out brand new and do dispo. If you're working 8 hours a day, if you spend the first half of your day just networking, cold calling, DMing, and reaching out to wholesalers that have deals, building a relationship with them and getting added to their buyers list so that every time they get a deal, they're emailing it to you, and you're basically building up a pipeline of deals for you to evaluate. If you do that for even a week, I guarantee your email will be flooded every single morning with 20 new potential opportunities, wholesale deals. Then you spend the next half of your day networking with buyers, which is really easy to find. Again, they're in Facebook groups. You can, cold call from people being online, go to local meetups and stuff like that. You spend the rest of your day building your buyers list and really getting to know the buyers and taking really good notes on what they are looking for a deal. And then every morning you look through your inbox, you quickly underwrite these deals, and you're just trying to find a match. You're trying to find a deal in your inbox that somebody sent you that fits what one of your buyers is looking for. And then once you do that, you call that wholesaler, say, hey, I've got a buyer, that I think would be interested in this. Can I send it to him? How much could you pay me if I bring you a buyer at this price? Can you give me a 30-40% split if I bring you a buyer? Do I need to add my fee on top? Like, you're just in the middle and you're creating a win-win situation, trying to help that wholesaler sell his deal, trying to help your buyer find a deal, and you're connecting the pieces. And you can make 20 grand a month doing that easily if you really do that full time.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like what you're doing solves a problem for a lot of people, because there's, like you said, like acquisitions is a tough thing, but some people are good at that, but horrible at dispo, right? Or vice versa, right? Maybe they're really good at dispo, bad at acquisitions, or bad at acquisitions and good at the other way. You know what I mean? I almost said the same thing twice, but like what you're doing is almost helping those people that if they recognize where they struggle, you can come in and help them move those deals a lot quicker. They're going to make more money, and you're going to make more money by solving that problem.
I agree with you 100%. And even for the people that I don't even think it's a matter of you're good at acquisitions and you're bad at dispo. For the acquisition people, acquisitions is a full-time job. If you are an acquisition guy, say you're locking up deals for yourself, you're a solo wholesaler, you're locking up deals, fantastic. You got a deal. Now you're going to take 1 to 2 weeks to sell that deal. That means you're taking your foot off the pedal on the acquisition side of the business. And as an acquisition person, you have to be hitting those phones every single day. If you take your foot off the pedal for a week, your pipeline goes dry, and all of a sudden, it's going to make you take a week off the pedal. It's going to take an extra month to get that next deal, right? Because follow up and that consistency is so important. And so for those acquisition guys, even if they have no problem doing dispo, it makes sense for them to outsource that because they have to stay focused on what they're doing. So they push the deal to someone else. They either add their fee on top, or maybe they're giving a 30 to 40% split on the assignment fee, but then they can focus on just getting more deals and staying in their lane and what they're good at and what their primary focus is.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's like you said, the more you take time away from your income generating or lead generating activities, you're going to run out of leads and not being consistent with it, right? Making sure that
exactly
that's consistently able to be sold. Especially if you're a one-man show, right? You wear a lot of hats as a one-man show in this business. And like you said, it's almost impossible to do that now with all the different things you have to do and being competitive and staying on top of stuff with people. So that's very interesting. I like the way you're doing that and how you've kind of put that together. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's in order to grow a business and be consistently doing deals and really be able to support yourself and your family in this business, you have to figure out a way to be able to get those deals every single month. And I think, like you just said perfectly, if you're not focused on one part of it, it's just going to be up and down, and you're never really going to get that consistent deal flow.
Yep. And so one thing that we talk about on this podcast too is people that are new, right? People that are new getting into wholesaling or just kind of getting started. I think you've kind of touched on it a little bit, but if someone was brand new, struggling, kind of where you were 2021, right? What would you recommend for them to do to start getting some traction in their business?
I think what I outlined a minute ago about focus on if you're full time, a lot of people, if you're new, you're not full time. It's hard to sit
Fair.
down
That's
and,
fair.
call, spend 4 hours a day calling wholesalers, 4 hours a day calling buyers. That's hard to do. And so I tell people all the time, like, go out and network with other wholesalers. Like, I will help you get a deal done. If you bring me a deal from another wholesaler and I can sell it, I'll split whatever I make on that with you, like straight up 50-50. Like, you don't have to spend thousands of dollars and all of this time like cold calling trying to do direct to seller. Like, if you're brand new and you don't even really understand the industry, like, the worst thing you could do, I think, is go cold call a seller, because you're gonna sound brand new on the
Yeah.
phone. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you don't know what you don't know. Like, they're gonna ask you questions that, like, they're always gonna throw you curveballs, and you're gonna sound like an idiot. You're gonna feel like an idiot. You're gonna get discouraged, and that's how you get burnt out so quick. Like, that's the worst thing you should do as a brand new person, is go try and be direct to seller. Like, you don't even understand how a wholesale deal works. So I tell people, like, go out there and find deals from other wholesalers, network with other wholesalers, use my experience. Tell them, like, your partner sold this many deals in the last couple of years. I'll be that partner for you, and bring me deals to dispo, and I'll split it with you. So I've helped a handful of people do that, and through that process, like, they're going to learn how a wholesale transaction works, and they're going to understand, like, a lot of the things that really, I think, only come with the experience of doing deals. And so I think that's the number one way to get started with, like, literally zero risk. It's just your time. Go out there, connect with other wholesalers, find people that are direct to seller on their deals, and I will help you. Like, I tell them all the time, like, I'll hop on a 3-way call and, like, help you have that conversation with that other wholesaler, so that they'll trust us enough to, like, dispo their deal.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I think that's good when you're new to JV with someone who can just help you walk through the process, right? Like, I think newer people are so concentrating on, hey, I need to get that deal because I need the money, but they don't know what they're doing. It's very likely they might not get that deal across the finish line. But have someone that has experience help you get that across the finish line. Did you get all the money that you wanted to get in that deal? No, but you got some. It's better than none.
Yeah, I mean, people say it all the time, right? Like, a piece, 30% of the pie is better than no pie. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you can make good money taking 30%. You can make really, really good money doing that. And so I think there's, no shame. And I think it's just like our ego. I was there, our ego gets involved. Like, I want to be the man. I want to get these deals and I want to do it on my own.
Mm.
But you're just, like, holding yourself back by doing it that way, I believe.
Yeah. 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 Like,
point.
Matt and I have never flipped a property, and we want to, but I guarantee you, when we have one we're going to flip, we are not doing that mug alone.
You literally just took the words out of my mouth. Yeah, my wife and I, like, we're brainstorming every night and trying to figure out, what we're going to do. We've been wanting to, like, buy and invest for a long time. We're finally in a financial position, like, we're able to. Our biggest problem is, like, shiny object syndrome. We have so many people that are killing it in Airbnb or storage or flipping or, like, all of these different sectors. And so we're like, like, what do we do?
Which
We
one?
need to pick a focus, and then, like, spend time, like, finding those deals and underwriting them and making offers. And so we've been stuck there. But our number one thing, no matter what direction we decide to go, is we're going to JV in our first few deals. Like, I'm not just going to go flip a house on my own. I'm not just going to go buy a storage facility on my own. I'm not just going to go buy a rental on my own. Like, it's so easy to connect with people that are killing it in any of those areas, that, like, you just partner up with people and, like, have someone that can help you with that. So yeah, I don't just apply that to my business. Like, literally anything that I'm doing, if it's new, like, it makes sense to partner with people. You're going to make more money in the long run.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, you might make a little less on the first couple deals, but that amount of knowledge is going to be worth way more than you're spending or than you're losing on those deals long term.
I was going to say, yeah, I'd rather make a little bit of money than lose a lot,
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like hiring a business coach or joining a mastermind. Like, it's the same thing. You're just learning from people who have done what you want to do or where you want to be with less pain is, like, the good way to do it. Like, it's just less painful way of learning something new. Because I've done the opposite and lost money, and it's never fun doing that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Awesome. So one question I had on here that you had put on the form that you filled out prior to this is you're building a new tool for disposition managers. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, it's very new. Like
Okay.
we started building it like within the last month. A good friend of mine that I met in college, he's a developer, and
Okay.
so he's helping me to build this thing out. Um, I told you guys I use InvestorLift. Like that's my primary tool for my business. Like my biggest cost of overhead is InvestorLift. And InvestorLift is great for what it is, but there's definitely like a big part of the industry that does not love Investor Lift. A lot of buyers are not a big fan of Investor Lift. And there's a lot of wholesalers that don't trust Investor Lift because there's so many buyers on there that like they're not vetted. Even if they say they're vetted, they're not you didn't vet them. Somebody
Right.
else vetted them. And so I think there's kind of a gap in the disposition space,
Hmm.
um, where so, for example, over the last few years, how many tools have you seen? How many CRMs and like transaction management tools have you seen for wholesaling, for acquisitions?
I couldn't even tell you.
You
Yeah.
couldn't because there's so many of
So
them.
many of them.
There's like a million of them. And it
Yeah.
makes sense why that's true. Over the last few years, our market was in such a crazy frenzy where like you could lock up a deal and it could like barely be a deal and you just email it to 10 people and it's going to be overbid. It's going to sell in 24 hours for 50K over asking. So like the disposition people didn't need a lot. Like they
Right.
just send an email and boom, that thing is sold, right? So
Hmm.
everybody was focusing on like arming the acquisition people with like every possible tool. And dispositions, I think, has been left behind. And I went on this journey a couple months ago where I was like trying to find a good CRM out there that did everything that I wanted to do, and I could not find it. And InvestorLift is close, but InvestorLift is crazy expensive. Like we pay a lot of money for it. And that's a barrier to entry for people. And so I
Hmm.
think there's a hole in the marketplace where there's a lot of wholesalers out there that are running badass operations without investor lift. They have their own buyers already.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And right now they're probably just using like MailChimp or something like that, or Salesforce maybe. But so they have the data, but there's really not a good disposition system. Like I met with a bunch of people a couple weeks ago and they were showing me their disposition CRMs that they built out and I was like, okay, pull up a deal and show me every single buyer that you've talked to about that property. When was the last time you talked to them? What are the notes? What is the offer? Like, what do they think about the property? Like, I want to see every single person, whether they loved it or hate it. I want to see every single person that you talked to about that property. That's valuable data. I have an offer tracker that I'm using right now that I created in just Google Sheets. And I've got a different tab for every single property. And on that sheet is a list, like I said, of every single person I've talked to, their name, their phone number, the notes, the last time I talked to them, their offer. If they went to see the property, I've got that information in there as well. And so I know for one, if we can't sell this deal, I've got a list of offers so I know where we need to be at for that deal to make sense, and I can help the wholesaler like kind of figure out a price reduction. So that's a benefit there. And then
Hmm.
number two, it's like I get a lot of deals in San Diego, so if once I do my email campaign and I built this list of buyers that are interested in this property and like it's not making sense for them, I'm going to go back to my old offer tracker for a previous San Diego deal, and I have a whole nother list of people to like kind of not even cold call, warm call, and say, hey, we had this other deal that we talked about a month ago. I've got another one. Let's see if this fits your buy box. And so nobody could really show me that. And so what we're doing is we're building a system for wholesalers that for disposition people specifically, where you can run campaigns, you can do your email campaigns. I don't know if we're going to do texting or not, maybe eventually, but you can run email campaigns. You upload, but it's your buyers list. It's not this massive unvetted buyers list.
Not
It's for
everybody.
your buyers list, right? So it's not going
Mhm.
to cost 3 to 5 grand a month because it's just like that's what you're paying for investor is the data. The system is badass. Like so we want to build something kind of similar, but specifically for wholesalers that just want to market to their buyers. There's not a tool that exists like that. So I started like wanting to build that for myself. I've been building my own buyers list off of Investor Lift. I don't want to be dependent on that forever. So like we've got our own data on the side. And so eventually we'll be able to transition from this really expensive software and the uncertainty of like, we don't really know who we're sending these deals to. And we'll be able to market just to our buyers, but have this like really, really complete disposition system where you can do your campaigns and you can really, really track every single person that you've talked to on that property.
That's super cool. I like that.
So,
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be a lot of development and stuff, but let us know as that
it's
gets closer.
it's got a ways to go for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure how long it's going to take to build, but
Yeah,
you know, we're working on it and I'm excited about it for sure.
that's super
Very
cool. Well, if people want to reach out to you, they've got deals that they need help moving and they want to learn a little bit more, what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Probably Instagram.
Okay.
Just send me a DM. Like if it goes into the request folder, I check that pretty often. So yeah, send me a message on Instagram. I'll get back to you, right away, and we can go from there.
Sweet.
Awesome. Love it, man. Well, thanks for coming on and talking about this. This is something we haven't had anybody talk about yet on one of our podcasts. So this was new and different and refreshing. So really appreciate you hopping on. I had a blast. Vince, did you have anything else you wanted to run through real quick?
No, man, I think that was awesome. Definitely gonna give you a follow here in a second.
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks so much, you guys. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you having me on.
Awesome.
man.
Thanks again, man.
Thank you.